I just kind of love to give back and teach people something that brought me like so much happiness. I started when I was 14. My older brother wrestled since I was like 3 years old. I met a lot of resistance and because I started in North Carolina and not in Pennsylvania, where it was just more common to have female wrestlers occasionally. And so I wrestled through high school in North Carolina. I went to University of Minnesota Morris my freshman year. That was the only women's wrestling in the entire US at the time. It was pretty exciting. It was really exciting to go, to the first ever women's wrestling team. Being a part of that, at the time, it was just, I just wanted what I wanted. I think that a lot of wrestlers are really like singular focused. And so I'm like, what do I want and how do I get it? And you just kind of go from that next to next to next. And it isn't until all of this came about that I actually look back on those things and I realize I'm like, man, like we really were like swimming up current all the time. And we didn't even know anything different. So it really wasn't that, it was, for us, it just felt more like kind of like a annoyance or inconvenience. It was just more of like somebody else who doesn't think that women's wrestling should be a thing. Okay, so like we knew that we could still do it. So we were really unbothered by, anybody who just thought we should do something different. We're like, yeah, well, we're gonna do it anyways. I didn't honestly care if it got in the Olympics or not because I just really had no conception of that. I wouldn't have been sad if they had just kept it in the World Championships. I just didn't know any better. So for me, it's just like, well, what are you doing? I just wanna be the best. And I just keep refocusing what the best is. And after that, it just became, okay, well, I wanna be an Olympic champion because that's the option. The Olympics is by far the most nerves that I've ever had in my entire life. I honestly thought before going out to my semifinals match, as I'm walking up the stairs, I thought, I'm scared. I don't want to do this. That other voice in my head's like, yeah, we don't care. We don't care. Go out there and wrestle. And I've never experienced that since that point, but that's how kind of like terrifying going after your dreams can be. People don't really talk about that like, they're like, oh, isn't that exciting? Ask me about fights and they're like, oh, that's exciting. I'm like, it's terrifying. This is why you don't, fist fight for a living or go and wrestle other people who are trying to break your will, to not just beat you with moves, but physically dominate you. Like it's a crazy feeling, so. After the 2008 trials, I knew that I was like, okay, I want to retire from wrestling and I want to have a baby. I was already getting my master's degree for mental health counseling. So I was like, I'm just gonna be a mom and I'm gonna be a counselor. And that's the period on my athletic career. But then in the midst of being pregnant, I'm like, I still have the urge to compete. And one of my friends was like, hey, like you should do some of the striking, like you should do MMA. And then I was like, okay. I went and I found someone to like hit mitts and I fell in love with it. So I was like, okay, I'll probably just like, I think I'll just do this for a little bit, like 5 years, as long as I can pay my bills. And that was 13 years ago.
I think, probably part of the reason why I'm sitting in this position today is because of people like Sara, right? And she just showed me that this was something worth pursuing, and I guess it was something worth spending my years of my life trying to help evolve. And Sara just showed that through her passion for the sport and her love for the sport and wanting to learn. A lot of hunger for knowledge.
I own my own gym with my husband, and he teaches jiu-jitsu, and I just have like a little youth wrestling class. I just kind of love to give back and teach people something that brought me like so much happiness. What I've learned from wrestling, I'd say it's taught me how to trust myself more. That even whenever I didn't know how the outcome was going to be at any of the things that I did, whether it was a practice or a tournament, it taught me that to trust that my body or my capabilities would come out when they needed to come out. I think that also it's taught me how to really enjoy the journey. And I know it sounds like super cliche and that everybody's like, blah, 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 you know, but man, I've won competitions and not felt the same satisfaction before that I have towards competitions that maybe were like not as prestigious, or even competitions that I've gone out there and done my best and put everything out there and maybe I didn't win, but I was just proud of who I was and proud of what I represented and proud of who I came there with. You know, all of my teammates and all the experiences I had, like I wouldn't trade that for anything. That's the real gold, you know, like not the gold at the end of the rainbow, but it's like, that's the real gold in this journey.